And I was wondering maybe, again, for students, if you can think back to that time, was that something that was always innate in you? Or for those students that might be a little bit more, well, I know you've described yourself as super extroverted, so maybe I know the answer to that question. But for those people maybe early on that might have a little bit more anxiety around that, do you have any suggestions for like putting yourself into that door? Because I think that's a very big, most people can look at that and be like, oh, that's a challenge. And then like, I won't go to that. So I was just curious on those thoughts.
People like to talk about themselves. People like to tell you about what they did. They like to hear about you. And so when I showed up to a professor's office who was really just teaching graduate level stuff, and I was this 18-year-old kid who was like, oh my God, you invented this thing. That's amazing. What human doesn't go, oh, I did. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was cool, And then I'd say, well, great. How'd that happen? Like, tell me about that. And he was thrilled to do it. And then that got us to talking about what he was doing in the lab, and he introduced me to one of his lead graduate students who showed me around. And that graduate student's like, oh, I'm awesome.
I think a lot of students, when they're first starting out, they don't really know how to give. Like when they meet someone like yourself, it's like, okay, Dave, he's, on these boards, he started, billion-dollar companies. And to your point, I think it's really important to hear, like, you actually get energy from the student as well. So I think, can they reframe that thought process of how can they help someone like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's an interesting problem. People say this when they're early in their careers, et cetera. Like, how is it that I can be helpful and the answer is, well, first of all, what you described, which is I'm spending time with you because I also want to know you and hear what you're thinking and learn what you're up to. And right. So I'm very involved at Stanford. I'm the incoming chair of the Stanford Alumni Association. And I think that to really do that job well, I really need to know what's happening on campus. And so any student I talk with who describes what they're doing on campus is giving to me because I want to understand what their experience is like. And it's funny, I've been talking about this within the Alumni Association. You inevitably, when you have these meetings where you say, let's bring together a bunch of students so we can hear what they think.
But the interesting thing I thought was that by you speaking out, you also combine that with how can I help? And I thought that was a really powerful set of words. Like if you're younger and you're saying to someone like yourself, let's use this example, like you have the lobby conference and I'm sure there's 15 million things you have to do to organize that, right? And if someone just said, I would like to help you with that, and I just want to help and figure out what that is like, I don't think that someone like you would turn that down. And I thought that was just a really fascinating way of how, again, if you have no connections, you have no capital, you have, especially younger, probably, you have a lot of extra time, and that might be what you can actually give.
The other thing I'd say quickly to your point about the board meetings, right? I was this young attorney. You're supposed to take notes. It's still the case that corporate attorneys sitting in board meetings, by and large, are supposed to take notes and whatever. But corporate attorneys see lots of things and they know lots of people. And so my version was the riskiest version, which is just to pretend like I was a board member and say whatever I wanted in the board meeting. And I said a lot, and it got me a job. It resulted in me becoming a VC. It got me fired, so it was a high stakes job. And if you got fired by too many of these companies when you're not even a partner, you're going to lose your job. So that's risky.
You talked about one of your entrepreneurs who, I think Pierre, and like you wouldn't have known that he was going to be a great entrepreneur when he was first starting his company. No algorithm would have told you that. And how you and your company have set up, in a sense, this idea of, we're going to actually know the people and systematically, we're also not going to scale our firm intentionally because of that, because it is all about having those connections and realizing that. I think that's really powerful because, again, there's even if you don't want to go into venture, there's so much pressure today with social networks. I have 1,000 friends, I have 20,000 followers, et cetera, right? But like, I think what your philosophy is ascribing to is, as you start to really think about that, like you don't always have to be the scale or the algorithmic. You can really think about the intention, and that could probably better serve you whatever industry you're going into.
Absolutely. I think my whole career is about connecting with amazing people, lots of amazing people and understanding not only what are they amazing at, but also what do they care about, right? So I started this conference now 20 years ago called the Lobby Conference, and it's an unconference, which is to say that the week before the conference, I say to the people who are coming, there are 250 executives from around the world who come together in Hawaii, which is lovely. And I say, what do you want to talk about? I'm not going to tell you what the conversation's about. You're going to tell me what you care about. And at the last one that just happened, I got 210 topics that I could choose among to decide what is the schedule. And then from 1 to 2 in the afternoon, here are the 10 things you can talk about. So I think people are people, and understanding that people are not systems and people are not, efficiency, that people are a set of, thoughts and emotions and things they care about is extraordinarily important. And I don't care what your profession is.